Well, news out today is that SACA24 is requesting a court order to force Eskom to reveal the prices at which it supplies electricity to BHP Billiton smelters in southern Africa. The contracts were signed in the early 1990s for the supply of electricity to BHP's Hillside smelter in Richards Bay and also the Mozal smelter outside Maputo. Well, joining me to discuss this is Marc Goldstein. He's energy analyst at Frost Sullivan in Cape Town. Marc, good afternoon.
Hi there.
Well, Marc, SACA24 alleges that these smelters receive power at less than cost, so effectively the rest of South Africa is subsidizing this large, profitable private company, which doesn't seem fair. Do we have the right to know just how cheap they are getting electricity, though?
Absolutely. I think it's a good question, and I think that at the moment, given the public debate about the future of the electricity supply industry in this country, it's vital that we know exactly what Eskom is doing with its supply of electricity. And if it is the case that Billiton have access to electricity at, I think what's reported to be around 9 cents per kilowatt hour at the moment, then certainly Eskom could benefit from raising that price, and it's something that needs to be discussed.
Well, of course, it is estimated that those two smelters alone consume about 5.6% of Eskom's basic power generation capacity. Does that sound about accurate to you?
Yes, I mean, generally smelters of that size would probably use around 1,200 megawatts of power. And I think that, yeah, if you added that back into the grid, I think South Africans in general would be a lot happier. However, you know, you need to weigh that up against the economic benefit of having a Billiton in the country, and that's something that an economist would have to answer.
Well, Marc, do you think it's fair that we do reach these agreements with companies that we do want to invest in South Africa? And of course, BHP Billiton is a big investor in the South African economy, so should they be getting preferential rates?
I think that in the terms of what happened in the apartheid days, it's understandable. You know, we can understand why they signed those contracts. Going forward, though, I think that given the situation we're in at the moment, it's not necessarily the right move for a country like South Africa. And I'm not sure exactly how much of the benefit that Billiton receive from having cheap electricity actually comes back into South Africa. So that's something that needs to be considered.
Should businesses be getting cheaper electricity than consumers, residential people?
Yeah, I mean, generally it makes sense to have industrial users getting cheaper electricity. They use more electricity and they require less infrastructure to get the electricity to their companies. So, you know, you've got more electricity moving over less infrastructure, so it's cheaper for Eskom to actually supply industry as opposed to residential homeowners. So it does make sense, yeah.
Well, just putting it into perspective, if Billiton is getting its power at 9 cents per kilowatt hour, how does that compare with what consumers are paying at this stage, and what should the price differential be in your opinion?
I think you need to compare what Billiton is paying at the moment to what other industrial organizations are paying at the moment, which is around about an average tariff of around 19 cents per kilowatt hour. So it's almost double, it's more than double. And you know, from that point of view, you can see that certainly it would have a very big effect on Eskom's revenues, especially you know, if they were to pay a cost-reflective tariff, which is what the other industrial players are paying.
Of course, we were chatting to a plastics manufacturer based in Cape Town last week, quite a big one, listed on the JSE. It doesn't get a preferential rate, but there are apparently 138 of Eskom's large customers that get these so-called sweetheart deals. Do we need the veil of secrecy lifted? Do we need to know what these companies are actually paying for their power?
Look, I think there's 138 companies who use probably the majority, 40% of electricity in South Africa. That's probably the ratio. The exact nature of the deals, I'm not sure, because from the industrial clients that we've spoken to, they're paying the average industrial rate of 19 cents per kilowatt hour, which is the Eskom Megaflex tariff. I'm not sure that all 138 are receiving contracts in the same sort of range as Billiton, but absolutely, we do need to know exactly what people are paying, because you know, we're in a dire situation at the moment, and we need to exhaust all avenues.
Well, of course, circumstances have changed considerably since BHP Billiton signed those deals for those tariffs. Should Eskom still be honouring those contracts? Can it get out of these contracts?
It's a very good question, and probably Eskom would have gotten out of the contracts already if they could have done so easily. I'd imagine that that they're pretty tightly wrapped up, and I don't know how good it will be for South Africa in general if we just renege on contracts with large industrial companies. Certainly that might hinder investment in the future. Without knowing the details of the contract, and it's very secret at the moment, it's very difficult to say whether or not Eskom will be able to get out of it. And BHP will be protecting its business interests. I'm sure that they would love to keep the contract in place for as long as possible.
Well, how much would revenue go up at Eskom if Billiton was paying market-related prices? So if it was paying those 19 cents per kilowatt hour, how would that help Eskom's revenue and perhaps put money aside for its build program?
Yeah, I think as we discussed earlier, Eskom would probably double its revenue from Billiton, unfortunately, without knowing exactly what they're paying at the moment. And the 9 cents per kilowatt hour is a guess. It's difficult to say, how much that would impact on Eskom exactly. But certainly Eskom could use every cent that it can get at the moment, and it would go a long way towards helping them manage their debt and making it easier for them to borrow money to fund the build program.
Well, Mark, we've already said that Eskom should be more transparent with its pricing. Do you think it's going to be? Do you think the public pressure will make Eskom become a little more transparent?
I hope so. It's a massive problem, and I think that it's a problem that Eskom face in many spheres. We saw what happened with the debacle between their ex-CEO, Jacob Marocha, and the chairman of the board, their ex-chairman of the board, Bobby Gottsel. We also have instances where certainly the ministers often make statements without consulting with the public in terms of the due process that they're supposed to about what the future of electricity in this country is going to be. So, we would hope as a country in general that, the parastatals would be more open and honest and transparent, because it would certainly make it much easier to support them, and it would curb the rumor and speculation which unfortunately causes a lot of the problems that we have at the moment.